Hello, everybody.
Hey.
It's like a throwback. I missed this old music.
How's this for a throwback? Wow.
This is great. I remember how cool it felt when we were like, hey, we have a theme song for the show, and this was our theme.
Yeah. Well, hey, Allie, glad to have you back in the studio. First of all,
Glad to be back.
why are we playing this old music?
That's a good question.
Do you want me to answer it, or do you?
Oh, I thought that was a rhetorical,
I
like
guess-
you were.
I have no idea.
just
Was
putting
it
it out
rhetorical?
there.
Yeah, it was kind of rhetorical.
So why are we playing this old music?
Because today is a very special day in the smorgasbord history.
Yes, it is.
This is our 10th anniversary, Allie.
10 years.
10 years.
So that would make, because when we launched this thing, you were looking back at, wow, it's been 25 years since the original Smorgasbord radio.
Yeah.
And so now that would make it 35 years.
I know.
Which would make you...
Yeah,
No, I'm kidding.
way too old. I still have a hobby, and I'm much older. I still have the same hobby since I was 7.
You know what? Good for you, though, because a lot of people don't really find their thing. I mean, not everyone has one thing that they stick to. There's people that have a multitude of interests. But good for you that you found your thing, that you found, your element, your creative element, and your creative outlet, I should say, and you were in your element. And
well, I'm glad you phrased it that way instead of some people just don't grow up.
no, but look at what you've done with it and all the creative projects that we have to look back on. And I'm talking radio plays. There's so many different directions that you can take this. And podcasting is a huge thing now. When we started it, it was like you had to explain to people what a podcast was. Now it's like it's a trendy thing now.
Yeah, I know. In fact, what I want to do is I'm going to move over to the other conversational mic here. So just give me a second here to swap. You can keep talking.
All right, so that there's not the dead air.
Yeah. So I thought, because this is a very special day for us, I didn't want to do what we did a year ago when we did our 100th episode. That was a big production where I went back in the archives and we pulled out a little snippet
clip
from each episode of the 100, and we played that. This is going to be a little bit more scaled down. In fact, a lot more scaled down.
Mm-hmm.
More of a conversational retrospect of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I like where you're going with this, where you started with this. First of all, welcome to the SmorgShow podcast. This is Chris.
I'm Allie.
And this is a father-daughter team. We've been doing this since January 30th, 2010. And it's 2020 now. I can't believe it.
Which, what's cool about that is 2010 was the beginning of a new decade. And we had...
Some would argue it's the end of one decade.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not one of those people. I think of it as
I think of it
cultural
as...
decades.
Right.
Yeah.
I think of it as the numbers because, what person out there is like, yeah, 1980 was part of the 70s. Like, no one says that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's the 80s.
Yeah.
It's the 90s.
The start of the 80s, yeah. So start of the 10s or whatever you want to call it.
Right, so the 10s. And it was like you had that to look forward to. And it's just cool that it happened to fall on a year ending in 0 as opposed to like launching something in 2013 and then 2023. It doesn't seem as monumental. I don't know.
Well, I like the way you started it because when we started this, we were very new in the medium. We didn't really know much about podcasting. It had started. It was starting to be popular, but the tools that were available, it was very clunky, very manual. I had to learn as we go. In fact, there's a couple of pictures we put on the website for this episode where it's the 10-year challenge that they were doing on social media, the 2010. We're a little late here because I think everybody were doing it for the end of the decade.
They were looking at it like the close of a decade.
2009 to 2019, yeah. So now we've got the comparison of what our studio looked like 10 years ago and what it looked like now. And you can see in one of the pictures, it's like podcasting for dummies. And literally, I had to learn how to podcast back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now it's a totally different beast. It's really grown.
Right. Yeah, because when we started it, it was where do you tell people to listen to the show? We would have to say, download it on iTunes or which isn't really iTunes anymore. It's Apple
Music, Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's like that's a separate thing. We told people the website, but it was like it was so foreign to people to just listen to a really long audio clip. But now it's like I don't know, podcasting, people take it on the go. People listen to it in the car. Everyone's got, headphones in. And it just seems like it's a more normalized thing for it to be like, I don't know, radio shows, they have their own podcast or, about a TV show. I don't know. It just seems like it's more of a thing. YouTubers have podcasts. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. I mean, 2010, people really didn't have iPhones yet. Anybody who had an iPhone in 2010 was pretty early adopters of technology. I didn't have mine until 2011. So podcasting in the sense of what it is today of taking it where you go, we still really weren't there yet. People had iPods, and I think that's where podcasting came from, is from the concept of the iPod. But people were downloading. I don't know. It was streaming, listening to it on the website. It was a totally different thing. But when we started it, I didn't actually think of it as podcasting. I just decided one afternoon, we were home, snowy day, nothing to do. I said, hey, I'm going to get my old equipment out of the basement from my teenage years. And it was my disco mixer and a tape recorder. And we just sat at the kitchen table and we just recorded for a half hour, made a trip to
Sonic,
ordered something in the drive or the drive tater tots. And I just put it out there and I said, I don't know if anybody's going to listen to this, but then I said, hey, let's do this again. And the next week, I think I ended up getting a phone number for our studio. And I found the, 312-95 SMORG to match the name of the show. And I thought, hey, let's have a phone number and people can call into it.
We also paired it with geocaching too, where the number was on the cache. So we got a few callers that would find our cache in the woods or whatever. So so those two things were kind of merged.
Yeah. And it just steadily grew there. And believe it or not, we actually did it weekly for 2 years straight. And then our third year, we were doing it like every other week. Mm-hmm. And then after 3 years, it became more of I wouldn't say a novelty, but it was semi-frequent whenever we had something to do. And then eventually, we had all these false starts where 6 months would go by, we would have another episode.
It has definitely had like different phases or even seasons, you could call it, because it did turn into anytime there was a big monumental thing, it was like, okay, we have a lot to update people on, or even if no one listens to it, just, a record of this is something that just happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, but you've had, Dave more regularly on the show. You've had Jerry on like a lot recently. So it's also kind of had a full circle in a way too,
Yeah. And I'd like to talk a little bit about how much you've changed in 10 years. I mean, that's half your life.
Yeah.
So let's hold that because that's a whole separate conversation. But you're right. Once you went off to college and I thought, I still want to keep this going. I want to do this regularly. This is what I've done for, like you said, my whole life pretty much. And to get those guys back in here, Dave and Jerry, on a regular basis. In fact, ever since maybe episode 90, they've been here more than you have. Mm-hmm. So the last 20 some odd episodes, whenever they come out for the weekend, we just
That's your bonding experience.
That's our bonding experience, yeah. So now we've got this is our 111th episode. We've got 111 episodes over the past 10 years to really reflect what was going on in our lives at that time. Starting with you when you were, what was it? Was it sixth grade?
I was 11 going on 12 when we started. Mm-hmm. So that was sixth grade, yeah.
Sixth grade. So you went through junior high, high school, college.
Now I'm out of college.
Congratulations, you are graduated.
Yeah. So in a way, it's almost like, okay, how much of a difference would it have made if nobody had ever heard a single episode of any of this? Like, first of all, we still would have kept going because we did, even when we weren't even sure who was, weren't even sure.
I didn't do it for anybody else.
It's not for anyone else. So if anything, it's like, this is a cool thing that like, it's almost like a spoken journal,
Yeah. It's something that will always exist out there. I mean, It'll be there forever.
Yeah. Which when you were in your high school radio days, probably never imagined that radio would evolve into something like this, right? I mean, did you ever think, I know when you were in high school and you had such an interest in radio, at one point you thought you were going to go into it professionally, but then realized that wasn't your path. But, did you ever think like, oh, I won't be doing this forever? I mean, what was your long-term view on the whole thing? Did you feel like, because you talked about how it's been cool to have Dave and Jerry back where you guys are doing this thing again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, did you think that, oh, I would be recording with them still, 35 years from now?
No, honestly, I didn't. I really thought, actually, when I was in high school, I really thought that was going to be my career. Somehow, whether it was on the radio, behind the microphone, or that was my intent. When I went into college, I was a communications major when I started. But very soon after that, I realized once I got on the college radio station and they put me on at 7 or 6 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday and nobody's listening college radio. And especially this radio station, it was sent to the dorms only. It was like cable radio. So unless you were in the dorms, nobody heard you.
It's like such a restriction to your creativity, like all your potential.
Right, exactly. And Sunday morning, not the best time to reach college students. So I'm talking to nobody and I'm in the back of my mind, realizing and being honest with myself that I knew this is how it's going to be in this. If I stay on this career, I'm going to end up in these podunk towns to try to make a living. So I changed my major to marketing, and I was thinking my next phase was I'm going to work in the business end of radio. Maybe I'll work in public relations or advertising or something, but I want to work for a radio station or a TV station. I want to be in that environment. But then again, I couldn't get an internship because that's a really competitive business to really find somebody. And I thought I had an in because my mom was friends with Steve Dahl and Gary Meyer, big radio time, Chicago radio celebrities. And I actually reached out to Gary Meyer and I asked him, is there any way I can get into WGN or WLS where you're working or any place? Can you set me up? He had no leads for me. And
even just to be the trash boy. So they say that even if you're just in the building, just surround yourself with the people you want to become.
Yeah.
And so there was nothing.
So I, after trying for, I don't know, a good part of my sophomore year, realized, you know what, I may not get into radio. So then I got into a totally different end of marketing. And I never looked back. I never did anything creative on, I would borrow my aunt had a video camera and I would borrow that. And the guys and I would do bits and skits around town. And we have lots of videos on the website and on our YouTube channel with the kind of stuff I was doing from college up until the time I got married, all these kind of creative things. But so there was always a creative bug in me, but I never thought I would ever get behind microphones again. And I never envisioned I would have a studio like this back then. Because that's where I started. And in high school, I had my little basement studio. But now this is that on steroids.
So what would child you, if you walked into the studio, know what I mean?
Oh, this is my dream back then. This was it.
Because it's full circle for you too. That you're back in a basement, recording.
Yeah, this is my man cave.
Yeah. So it's So this has always been you. It's just
and technically I could take this to the next level if I really had the energy to do it, because in the old day, you needed a transmitter to get your voice out. And now all you have to do is you're on the internet. You can get your voice out. Dave and I, when we were on the radio, we were constricted by 250 watts in the transmitter that would get us maybe 10 miles radius around Downers Grove. And on a good night when there was no storms, no bad weather, the signal would carry farther than a rainy night. So there were some really nights where we had clear nights and we were getting picked up even 20 miles away. And it was like, wow, we're reaching these really far to reach suburbs. And it was amazing. But had we had internet radio back then, I don't know. The sky would have been the limit for what we would have done back then.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
So flash forward 10 years later, I thought I wanted to kind of share my passion with you a little bit, because I know you were already starting to get into tape recorders and video cameras. And I thought, let's just,
because I took my video camera everywhere I went,
you did, yeah.
So the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah. And after, 6 months to a year, I said, I tried to find Dave because I said, Dave, Dave would love to see what we're doing now as our studio is starting to get built, as we were starting to get some really creative material out there. And I kept trying to find Dave. I tried looking him up online. I tried looking up the arrest records online to find where's Dave. I can't find Dave. And then somewhere, I think it was episode 39 or 40, we found Dave. And that was like a start of another era of this show to bring him into it so he could experience.
It's like a soap opera, It
really is. We do have a story. It is not just random stuff out there. It is actually a...
Yeah, like you don't have to listen in order, but it is a linear story.
Yeah, especially started when we getting into, when Baba bought his restaurant, and there's a whole soap opera around the lawsuit he had to endure with that.
There's a lot of key players into this show's story.
Yeah. In fact, I want to take you down a little bit of memory lane. I decided to pick out a few random sound effects that might trigger some memories of some things. So give me a second.
Go. Yeah. It's going to, what it's going to do is it's going to trigger memories I didn't even know I had, well, or way back there in the subconscious or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So just give me a second here. Let's see if you recognize some of these. Okay, let's see if you can remember some of this.
Okay, I won't read the titles because I think you have these labeled. Oh, yeah.
Hey.
Oh, where is he? It's missing without the voice.
Yeah. What is this, Allie?
This is the Get a Life
That's
theme.
Right, a Get a Life game show. Let's see. Steve Charm, is this it?
Hey!
There we go.
Hey.
The object of the game is to get a life better than the one you have presently. What the audience...
So,
See, it's just not complete without the full package.
That was a game show that we did in the original Smorgasbord show, where somebody would have to call in, and they used to have to have a bad life, a life that they wanted to get rid of and replace it with another life, and they would have to choose behind 3 doors, and we would have a brand spanking new life for them to pick. And,
the SmorgShow podcast is kind of a spin-off of the original radio show, where you bring back some of the old bits that,
Right. So that was fun to do a lot of those. How about this one?
New artist of the week.
Oh, Timmy.
Timmy.
Wow, you know what? He quit halfway through the show.
Happened.
Yeah.
Where are they now? Where's Timmy?
He grew up, his voice dropped, and he didn't have the same charm.
Yeah, well, this is
the SmorgShow podcast, and it's time for New Artist of the Week.
That's right. Dave got that slot.
Yes, yeah. We found Dave, and then the first thing I did with him was get him into actually, we recorded a lot of those bits in my car. We needed a quiet place. So we just sat in my car, and I said,
in the
"Hey,
parking
Dave,
lot of like a Sonic or Starbucks or something."
Yeah, just read this." Yeah. So anyway, New Artist of the Week was something that we did early on, where we wanted to fill 5 minutes of time each week by playing a song from an up and coming artist, one that wouldn't fine us for copyright infringement. We were able to play their music, and we would just find artists around the globe.
And we got good feedback from them, too. Jordan Martin was our most interactive artist that we featured on the show because, we played a few of his songs. And I think he was the most appreciative. So that was the thing, is it was these independent artists that we were supporting that appreciated that we were, showcasing their music.
Yeah. Jordan Martin from England. He recorded, we did an interview with him, which was pretty good. I don't know what episode that was, somewhere in the 50s, I think. But here is him recording a tagline for us. See if you can catch the error.
This is Jordan Martin, and even 6 hours behind in the UK, I keep up to date with the SmorgShow podcast.
Oh, you know what? This this bothered me because I realized it pretty soon after that he recorded that.
I didn't even notice it.
I think you played it for me, and then I was like, wait a minute.
They're 6 hours ahead.
So
yeah.
But
this is Jordan Martin, and even 6 hours behind in the UK, I keep up to date with the SmorgShow
so you know what?
podcast.
He's got to start a podcast, and then we've got to record something for him.
Even in the US, we're 6 hours ahead of the UK. We still listen to Jordan Martin.
No, we're behind the UK.
No, if we did it opposite, like he did. Wrong. We would have to say 6 hours ahead.
No, but I'm saying to correct it.
Oh.
And still use the even though I'm 6 hours behind, because it doesn't really work for ahead, because he's saying I still keep up even though I'm behind.
Yeah.
So we need to say something about how we're behind, that we keep up with his music, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha.
But it's a clever tag if you don't give it any thought. No.
Yeah. Let me see. What about this one here? You hinted on this one earlier. Let me see if I can find this. Oh, come on. Where is it?
Oh.
Where's
Tisha.
This was so early on.
That was very early.
That was like
on.
episode 9.
That was where we had the little geocaching. We had this little, so people who are familiar with the sport geocaching, we had, it's treasure hunting with a GPS. We had this little keychain with a chicken, rubber chicken.
I'm looking at it now.
That's right.
We know that's not the original.
Oh, that's right.
Wait, no, isn't it?
Okay.
Okay, sorry, tell the story.
So the story is, the geocaching, there's something called a travel bug where you can you get a little tag with a number on it, and you register to the geocaching website, and you attach it to any object. And your goal is, you have to come up with a goal with it, and you have to put it on a little website, almost like a little blog. And you say, my goal is to travel as many states as possible. And then when somebody finds it in one of the little caches, the boxes in the forest or wherever you decide to hide it, they find it, they see the little tag, they go online, they look it up, and it says, hey, I want to go west. Okay, well, my goal, my mission as a geocacher is to move it west. So I will travel somewhere west. Could be a mile, it could be 20 miles, but I drop it in a box that's closer to the destination where it's looking. So Tisha was a chicken, and I wanted her to go to Chicken, Alaska. It is a town.
So you really luck out when someone's going on like a cross-country road trip,
Right. So on the website, it says, please bring me to the Northwest. I want to go to Chicken, Alaska. So we were watching this travel bug go city to city, and we had a feature every week. We would say, Where's Tisha? We would look her up, and we'd say, hey, she's in... And she got all the way to Seattle. And we're like, wow, that's like, I don't know, 3,000 miles?
Yeah,
She's
but
like,
I think that actually was someone that was like, hey, my family's taking a trip to Seattle. So we're like, oh my gosh, like that happened so quickly. Like she got there so fast.
Yeah. And right after she got to Seattle, some moron picked her up and started bringing her back to the Midwest.
Because I think he was thinking, because there's another type of geocache where it's not about any particular direction, but just how many miles can this thing like accumulate. You know what I mean? So he was thinking, oh, great. Like, wasn't he taking a trip to Illinois?
He was going to, yeah.
I mean, it was like within miles of our home. And he was like, hey, I'm going all the way. Like he was doing a cross country trip, but like east. And so, and he was thinking, I'm going to put so many miles on this. But it's like, no, you're taking her in the opposite direction of where she needs to go.
It took her like a year to get where she finally got. And then this guy, within a matter of 2 weeks, gets it back within 5 miles of our house. I mean, what are the odds of the thing actually returning to a place where you could actually pick it up again?
Right.
So I went out. In fact, I made a big video out of it. I said, we're going to go retrieve her. But by that time, the original rubber chicken was gone, and it was just a laminate of a chicken.
So it didn't make, So the whole bit about going to Chicken, Alaska didn't make sense.
No, it
but
didn't.
I think it was more, I mean, how rare is it that you get your travel bug back? So I guess that in itself was a cool thing.
That's right.
So I guess the rubber chicken I'm looking at hanging on the wall on the partition thing over there is not the original then. Because she's...
Oh, right. That's not the original, but the laminate is still there.
Right. So wait, I honestly forget why we named her Tisha.
Oh, there's a book somewhere on the bookshelf. Maybe not. It's buried back there. There's a book about living in the Alaskan wilderness, and it was Tisha was the person, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Very obscure book. I found it because I was looking up on a book about Chicken, Alaska, and it actually talks about it in the book. So
and Tisha Chicken just had a nice ring to it.
Yeah, Tisha Chicken.
Aw, Granny Rose music.
Granny Rose. She's still alive, as we saw last year when we went out to her barn.
What a sweet lady.
She is a sweet lady. She had us out. She owns a farm, and our 100th episode was in a barn.
And we always got the best recipes from her, the best, holiday traditions to celebrate.
It was a sweet little bit. Getting teary-eyed.
It has a melancholy sound to it, but it was just, the music. But it's just supposed to be a sweet music box.
Yeah. How about this one? Oh, no. I thought I had one other one here somewhere. Where are we here? I can't seem to find it right now.
You got to look through your whole assortment of sound bites.
Here we go. How about this one?
I am Baba Gunish, and welcome to my palace. Aloo paratha, a taste of Baba. Aloo mutar, veggie biryani, tikka masala, sag aloo, sag paneer, mixed vegetables, vegetarian makhani. Yes, I am now open for business. The Hidden Palace, Indian and Pakistani cuisine.
That was the most technically savvy the Baba ever got.
A nice promo there. Yeah.
Yeah.
He bought his restaurant, and there was lots of drama at that restaurant. The guy that set it on fire.
Well, and
no, what was it? Fire? No. He had the gasoline.
Wasn't it a stink bomb or something?
Oh, he had a urine. He had a bucket full of urine, and then he came back with some gasoline, and then somebody tackled him or something.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. And then he had the issue with reading his reviews. But then it got mixed up with another Indian restaurant, and they thought that they were reading his. I don't remember the whole story, but it was so there was potential legal issues there.
Yeah. So Baba went back to India because he wasn't getting steady work from us much anymore. But his son, Ganesh, is running the restaurant now. So maybe that's in the future, another future episode. We'll see.
An update with him.
Yeah. So I had a couple of other ones here, but I can't seem to find what folder they're in. So I thought that was kind of fun to just...
That defeats the purpose of a folder. If you're getting all jumbled over there.
Yeah, I mean, we had this thing here.
Mr. Brown can do. Oh. He can go like a cow. He can go moo moo. Mr. Brown can do it. How about you?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes. The hot track of the year.
This was a big hit.
I think it was on Billboard Top 200.
I think so. That's you on your keyboards.
Like a cork. Pop, pop, pop. He can go like horse.
See, my love for sound design.
Yeah, that's
and music.
That's one of some of your early work.
I should put this on my portfolio.
He can go like a rooster. Cock-a-doodle-doo.
So that was a remake of the original when Dave and I had the high school show, and we had these teenagers call in on Talent Line, and they presented their Mr. Brown Can Moo. So we redid that for them. I was hoping that would have been something that would have gotten them to call us up on this show, but I guess they're not searching for their own song.
It's a pretty obscure,
40 years
very
later.
narrow search.
Yeah. I mean, if you type in Mr. Brown Can Moo, I think you might even, like, the number one thing that shows up is our show.
Really? And not the Dr. Seuss book?
I think we've passed Dr. Seuss because we're so popular.
He's rolling in his grave.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And I had something here with my voiceover business that I tried to launch halfway early on in the career in the series. But that's all I had.
Yeah, that was a great trip down memory lane.
So let's talk a little bit about you over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
You've gone through quite a lot.
From 6th grade till now? Yeah,
Wow.
I've learned a few things.
Just a little bit.
I mean, those are definitely pivotal years in a person's life. I mean, between 6th grade and now,
My gosh, yeah.
I mean, like, middle school is like, if we're going from the very beginning. So the first day, I'll start with the first day. No,
Yeah.
but like if you start with just middle school in general, is the year when, okay, you you're so worried about what other people think of you. So, the biggest lesson you take from middle school is I don't know, gaining confidence and like, okay, what are the things that matter? You know what I mean? Like those are kind of the things that you pinpoint in middle school. Then high school, once it's like, okay, there's still an element of you're really self-conscious and you're worried about what people think of you. Like, there's always going to be a little bit of that. But high school is now narrowing down like, okay, well, who am I? Because like middle school, it was all about trying to fit in with everybody. But now what makes me different from everyone? Like, so who am I? So it's like you're establishing your identity in high school. And then college is all about, okay, now there's this independence and I have a sense of who I am. But now how do I express that? What do I turn to, express who I am? And, like what's my thing? Like, what am I going to find? I don't know. Like now, what can I use to now tell everyone else like who I am,
Yeah.
So that's to break down those 3 different phases of school, I guess.
Yeah. In high school, you were into theater.
Yeah. Theater.
Choir.
Well, it was weird. I did 1 year of choir in high school because there was something where you could only do 2 electives. Or something. It was like a certain amount of credits for electives, and so I really wanted to do Spanish all 4 years. So that means I had to choose between theater or choir. So my first year there, I did choir, but then it was like I really want to experience theater. So then I did theater in Spanish then for the rest of high school. But then towards the end of high school, I realized I don't know if theater's really my thing. I felt like I don't really feel like I fit in with the theater crowd. I don't want to make any assumptions about if there are theater listeners. I don't want to step on anyone's toes. But for me personally, I felt like it was a bit of a flaky crowd where you were only, I guess, accepted by them if you were keeping up with doing all the same shows as them. And when you weren't in a show with them, it was like doing a show was like this long inside joke, inside like thing that like you had with those people. And then when you weren't in the show, it was like you didn't have anything in common with them anymore.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of a flaky crowd. And it's like, I don't know if that's really what I want to do.
I know exactly what you mean. There was a very brief period of time I dated somebody in high school who was into theater, and I went to a party.
A cast party?
Cast party.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Well, the only people it's fun for are like the leads of that show. No, the people that are in the show, that understand all of because you're literally with these people for hours every day, and so you have so much to talk about because your life for those 6 weeks or whatever is this show. Mm-hmm. So it's like you think you're best friends with all these people, and then when the show's over, it's like, well, we don't have anything to talk about anymore because they're on to the next show. They're talking about that one.
Yeah.
So I literally I remember there was 1 year where I was so burned out from doing so many shows that I decided to take a break and not do the spring musical. And I kid you not, like the moment that auditions happened and I decided not to audition, like from that week on the rest of the school year, they didn't even say hi to me in the hallway. So it was just, it was just like a, wow. Okay. So that kind of opened my eyes.
Mm-hmm. And
so I would say junior year of high school was my absolute favorite year because that was when I realized who are my real friends? Who am I? I totally I just feel like that was such a pivotal year with like my sense of who I was kind of blossomed more. And I kind of learned to, this sounds weird, but to love myself that year, to actually like just be okay with, be okay with who I was and what other people said. That was none of my business, So that was my favorite year of high school. Because by senior year, it's cool because you feel like, oh yeah, you're top of the school, but you're kind of ready to be out by then.
Yeah, you're checked out by that point.
So junior year was my favorite year of high school.
Well, junior year for me, just to parallel your situation that's when I started to do the show with Dave. So that was exactly where I was. Junior year and senior were fantastic for me.
Yeah. Because that's also when you get your license too. There's something about driving too that it's like, that's your first like huge milestone for like, wow, I feel independent is like, I don't have to ask for a ride to go places.
Uh-huh.
And then there's like the first 2 months of getting your license that you wave your keys around, like it kind of show off that, hey, I can drive. But So
you finished high school, you went into college, and you finished a semester early, 3.5 years. Kudos to you.
Yeah, I have to give credit to AP classes and doing Spanish for 4 years, like I mentioned. That's what helped me.
Yeah.
So I stuck with that.
No math or English in college.
Right. No math, no English. I also did AP psychology, which counted as a humanities credit.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of things that I was able to like, literally a semester's worth of classes I did, like, because it was the dual credit classes. I don't know if AP is a universal term, so I don't think so. It's like dual credit.
Yeah,
you know.
honors.
I don't even know what it's advanced placement.
Advanced
something?
placement.
I think where it's like college credit, but it was only for in-state schools. Like if I decided to go out of state, don't think it would have transferred.
Just canceled. See, all that paid
off. So
off.
I saved you money. I commuted. So
yes, you saved a lot of money for us by living at home. What was that?
I don't know. Something fell. Oh, I think my phone fell off the table.
Oh, okay.
But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't remember where I was going. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I guess with college I felt like, you know, in a sense, your first year of college, in a way, almost I had flashbacks to freshman year of high school a little bit, where it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know anyone here. You almost have to kind of like reestablish yourself. Like in high school, it's like, not that it's about, oh, I want people to know who I am. Like that wasn't what it was about. But like college is like, you literally don't know anyone. And so when I went into college, my school was on trimesters. But for my last semester, it became a semester school. So for freshman, sophomore, junior year, it was trimesters. And my first trimester of school was like, I commuted to school, and then I would like work at my, you know, part-time job, and like I would go, I mean, I had all morning classes and then like went home after that. So it was like, okay, I was so depressed my first trimester of college because it was like, I didn't know anyone there. And so then it was probably the rest of freshman year that it was all about, okay, I need to like branch out and like get involved in things. And by sophomore year, it was like, oh yeah, totally. I've got friends here. I feel like I'm involved. And so I would say junior year of college, again, junior year was my favorite because that was like, wow, I know what I'm doing. I know what I want to do with my life. Like I know I have like all these things I'm involved in. I have friends. I feel I have like a family here of like, you know, that sort of thing. So I would say that I don't feel like I missed out by being a commuter, because you just have to, it's like being a resident, but you have to try a little bit harder, you know?
Well, and you were plugged into a lot more things in college than I was. And when I lived on campus.
Yeah. And to be honest, when I heard about resident life, I was thinking, I'm not missing out on much. Like, you know, the only, you know, okay, I'm getting everything you guys get, except for, I've lowered to it, like, you know, I don't have to pay room and board.
$10,000 a year.
I don't have to wear shoes in the shower. Like, you know, I get my own shower, get my own bed. So,
yeah,
you know, so it was like, that was what, you know, I got invited to one college party and I didn't want to go. Like, I didn't want to be in the party scene.
Yeah. Well, it really helped us out because you've graduated debt free. No tuition payments. In fact, we just went and did our first home upgrade purchase last weekend for the first time. All the things that we've saved up on our list of things that we needed to do, you know, new bedroom set, next thing will be new carpeting, but we've kind of put on hold until you get out of college. So,
yeah,
nice.
Well, I mean, a huge thank you to you guys I mean, you know, it's not just because I graduated a semester early. I mean, it's a
that really
dual effort here. Yeah. It's a team effort.
Right.
There's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of, you know, other family members. Like there's just a lot of people involved in that.
Yeah.
So,
it's a community.
Yeah.
And your grades and your scholarship really helped. And like you said, a team effort.
Yeah.
And I guess we can't conclude without mentioning your engagement.
Yeah.
Also a big thing in the last year.
That was summer of 2019. Yeah. So, yeah, that's like the next big thing. So that also helps I'm not in debt too, because I gotta save for that too. But
yeah.
Yeah, so that's the next big thing.
Big
and
spectrum
we went to a wedding expo today with like all the different the vendors that are there, and we've already picked our venue, and it's a really cool, like, it's local, it's like 8 minutes away, but it's also just a family owned place, and really down to earth, really nice people. As soon as we stepped foot on the place, it was like, this feels like everything just feels right about this, and like really good deal for things. I don't know. It feels like when things are right, they just fall into place, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of how it's been.
Yeah.
So you just have to be, open to to looking at that.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I obviously didn't have as much of a drastic change in 10 years, because I'm not in that age group, going from my 40s to my 50s. It's 10 years on to the career, and I start to think more about winding down in the next 10 years, which is starting to plan for that, all the retirement goals. And lots of things happening this year. The last episode was dedicated to my dad, who passed away in November. So there's a lot of stuff to do with his estate, and got to work through all that this year. I think that's going to be big. But, I'm in a career now, and hopefully this is the last place I ever have to work, because I'm at that age where I don't want to start over. Going to another company and starting up all over again. It's like if something happened to this job, I would be seriously thinking about doing something completely different, and I don't know what that is. Hopefully I've got another few years at this place before I have to worry about that. But I always started to think about what is that next phase that's going to wind me down from the.
Yeah, I never would have pictured. I mean, it's like growing up. It's like, oh, you never think of, never thought of you retired.
Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky to be able to work from home the past 7 years. So I haven't really been in the cattle situation of commuting to the city again. It
won't be as drastic of a life change when you retire,
Yeah,
because,
I noticed.
Because you still, I have a sense you still like your office, even though you like being in there.
I do.
It's good. It doesn't stress you out when you walk in there. Like you surround yourself with pictures and it's just, so I feel like, just like the studio, you have your spaces. So it's like, you just won't be working,
Yeah, I've got the dedicated space for work. So when I leave there, I really don't go in there for anything other than work. So it's separate from the rest of the house. And if I want to get away from it, I come to the studio. This is where I get creative. This is where I unwind with a beer or something. And this is a relaxing place for me. I've been comforted by the lights, the little... the mood lights around here.
Everybody needs their space.
But the one thing I notice about working from home all the time is that the time I have off around the holidays, I always take the last week or two off of the rest of the year. There used to be a drastic difference of being at work in the city, and then when I'm off for the end of the year for Christmas, it's like, wow, it's nice to be home. But I'm always home now, so there's not that contrast. Other than not working, it was always nice, but I'm just always here.
Yeah. But that means that you don't, I mean, I know you still dread Mondays because it'll be, Sunday at 3:00 and you'll be like, oh, I have a meeting. It's like, oh my God, don't think about it. Like
18 hours I'll be
you literally will be like, in 16 hours I'll hate my life, or whatever. But no, you still dread Mondays, but I think it's not in a sense as like if you would have to get up at 5 to go catch a train. You're probably so glad you don't have to do public transportation anymore.
Oh yeah. Big money saved with not commuting, only having the one car to worry about, no dry cleaning, lunch is out.
Yeah.
Eating out every day is $200 a month right there. Lots of ways to save money when you're not working out of the home. That's how
it's been even just, I graduated a month ago. And so it's like a little over a month ago. And I've noticed that too, where it's like, okay, I'm not eating out every single day of the week for lunch, Yeah. So, and I'm not using as much gas by driving all the way to school, So it's like, I've noticed that too. In a way, I feel like I'm working from home. So I still work. I'm coming up on 3 years now of having my own piano business, which is really cool because I've seen that grow too.
Yeah.
And I guess I haven't talked about that too much on the show because it's like, I don't want to
right.
I don't want to give away the identity of my students like that. That seems weird, but I've been doing that for close to 3 years. And so I'm still doing that. That's kind of a part-time job. But in terms of during the day, it feels like I'm working a full-time job by looking for work. They say looking for a job is a full-time job.
That's right.
So it's so I love teaching. It's just hard to the hours for it it's got to be at least after 3:00 because kids are in school.
Yeah. So you've got to keep that in the evening.
So it's not like I'm completely it's not like, oh my gosh, I have rent due and I have no job or I'm not making any money. It's like, no, I still am making money. There's not this rush to, oh my gosh, I have I have to find something now. I mean, I'd like to find something in the next couple months. Like that's the plan. But
yeah, because you want to get out before your wedding day. You'd like to have like a year or so,
right? Like
in your own apartment.
I have another friend that we've talked about that she's also engaged. but yeah, it's like we both have talked about how we want to have like that independent time of like, you know, a year and a half, 2 years of like just, you know, like being on our own and feeling like we can support ourselves. That's that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a good feeling.
So it's like that's the goal, but it's not like I'm completely broke. it's a part-time job, and I'd like to, you know, find something else. So
yeah, so you had an internship last summer, and so hoping.
Yes, I had an internship with music licensing and music branding company. They have an online catalog for different companies that are looking for music in advertisements or, you know, film or whatever. And then they also have composers that write music for commercials and everything. And so, so that was really cool. And so I'm looking at video editing jobs, but the real thing that I'm like really passionate about that, you know, I feel like is a little bit more competitive. That's why I'm also looking at video editing. But the thing I'm really passionate about is like, yeah, those music licensing companies, somewhere where I'm just in the music scene. So
cool. Maybe
I'll be the custodian first. Like,
hey,
you know,
got to start somewhere.
Right. No, but you know, that's because I graduated with a multimedia digital communications major, music minor, but I like to say I was a super minor because I did I was involved in so many music things there that that were beyond the minor requirements. I think I finished my requirements for the minor like sophomore year. I'm like, let's keep going, you know?
That's great.
So
you've got your ceremony for your graduation ceremony in May.
Yep.
So
May.
Just about 3 months away, right?
Right. Yeah. So we're already thinking about that weekend too, and family coming out for that.
That'll be out. That'll be here before you know it.
Yep.
That's amazing. Yeah. So lots of changes going on here for you, and as a result, indirectly to us, because once you move out, we'll be empty nesters.
Yeah, I'm 100% of your kids.
Yes, you are, and my tax deduction.
Yeah. Yes.
Fantastic. So I think that's a good reflection on the last 10 years.
So a lot has happened. But it's so funny that it's like, a ton of stuff has happened in the last 10 years. But of course, like my mind instantly goes to like, oh, just the last few years already feels like, oh my gosh, it's been so much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's just really crazy to think we started this 10 years ago and never thought, which I'd still be doing it. Like you said, back to your earlier question.
Yeah, going back to like your 11-year-old self.
Wow, yeah.
You know what I mean?
11 years, yeah. I had no idea what I was doing then.
But you were already playing around with,
tape recorder.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it started with me having a tape recorder, knowing a telephone number of a phone booth that was probably, I don't know, a quarter mile away from my house at the grocery store. And I would set the phone down to the tape recorder's microphone. I would dial the payphone. I would run as fast as I could to the store. It would take me 7 or 8 minutes to get over there. And I would answer the phone and I would talk into the phone, which I knew it was recording back at home. And I would hang up the phone, run back home and listen to myself back.
You know, you could have saved yourself by just recording yourself on the tape
recorder. I realized that. But I got the exercise.
It was just, yeah. You stayed out of trouble.
That was what I did for my summer vacation.
So wait, you could have, but you're saying you could have recorded somebody using that phone?
Yeah.
That's like a collusion kind of thing. Like, what's the word?
If somebody had picked up the phone.
Espionage, no. Or I don't know what's the word for like, bugging telephones?
Wiretapping.
Yeah, wiretap. I'm thinking of all the political things.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That and my fascination with, directory assistants and calling operators and just playing around with three-way calling and calling two operators at the same time and hooking them up together, and they wouldn't know how they got on the phone with each other, and they would say, you called me, no, I called you, and just running up the phone bill. That was kind of what I did as a kid. I just...
Your $1,000
my $1,000, yeah. Which, is in the eulogy to my dad in the last episode. I had to tell that story.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing about that, anybody who listened to the last episode, and I played the eulogy at the end, right after the eulogy was, I don't even know if I told this on the episode last week, but once I told that story, and then the people that my dad worked with, there was a guy who stood up and said, I remember that story, but from another angle. Your dad came into the office saying he got $1,000 phone bill. And I said,
oh, that's a mistake. That can't be right.
That can't be right. And so he enjoyed hearing my side of the story of the background of how the phone bill got to be that big.
You explaining yourself.
Yeah. So it was a good experience. So just winding down here, just looking ahead a little bit. We got off a track a little bit because of the situation with my dad, but last year we had quite a pretty decent amount of output here. A lot of episodes, mainly with Dave and Jerry coming out to the house. And then Dave, I think the last time we got together was the end of September. End of October. Yeah, right, end of October.
Yeah.
We had an Oktoberfest. Jerry was out here. But those two guys are going to be coming out here in about 2 weeks because Kim, my wife, will be heading out to D.C. to spend some time with my stepmom to see how she's doing and get some of the paperwork in order to get copies back to me of some things that we have to get into with his estate. But that time will be guy time.
So I'll be sure to stay out of the way, is what you're saying.
Well, we'll have Dave and Jerry out on the Saturday. I think that's February, I don't know, 9th.
8th or something?
8th, 9th, something like that. Yeah, that weekend. So I'm sure we're going to record some episodes there and put them out there, but that's kind of the plan.
Yeah.
So
that's the week of my, that's another cool thing is I mean, we talked about this, you talked about in your eulogy, but I compose music at when I was in school. That was like one thing I really found a passion in, and also kind of transitions me into or directs me towards the music licensing, the branding, like all the composing music and everything. And yeah, my grandpa, the one who passed away, was like such a big supportive fan. But anyway, there's a piece that I finished that I wrote towards the end of my time at school that is actually being showcased in a concert that week.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Looking forward to hearing that.
So that could be something we can play on here, too.
Yeah. I'll probably record that and play it on the show. Well, don't you be a stranger. We want you to we want you to be back here.
I will, I'll be here and do bits you guys want me to do bits on. And when you want guy bonding time and, chugging down some cold ones, I will stay out of the way.
When you finally do go off into your apartment and you're not back here in the studio, we could still do Skype and
I could phone in. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you could take one of these fancy microphones with you and plug it into your computer and you'll sound like you're in the studio.
Right.
Yeah. You're never that far away from us.
Right. Exactly. With all this technology.
That's great. Yeah. I'll be doing this for another 10 years. Somehow I think that I'm just going to have to resign myself to that fact.
Yeah. I think you have to.
I have to. Why stop now? It's been 50 years.
I mean, isn't this how you remain sane?
This really is a large part of the reason why I'm sane.
Is that what? No.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, for sure. All right. So there we go. I don't remember what our closing theme was from back at the beginning.
I thought we just played the same music again.
I think you're right.
Or wasn't it No, there was a blues one that we did.
Oh, no, that was actually one of the things I wanted to talk about. So our first theme was basically the garage band.
Yeah, with a couple instruments like swapped out.
They would put, they would put the basic one in there. Oh, wait.
See, we had so many different arrangements.
Yeah, I know. We did different. There we go. That was the original one.
No, the original was a saxophone.
Oh, was it? The jazz one?
This is the original.
Oh, that's the original.
Yep.
That's right. This is the one we started with. And then we started to play around with the arrangements. We would just swap out the instruments.
Because this was the default, like, jazz demo or whatever in GarageBand. It's like, well, we got to change it a little bit. So the xylophone kind of became the, I don't know, the
I should have started
revamped one.
I should have started with this for the beginning of the show. But yeah, we went to the jazz, the lounge. I mean, and then we went to the blues. Oh wait, another one. Oh yeah,
It's like a muted trumpet.
yeah. I think one more. Oh yeah,
There we go.
the funky. Okay.
But actually, I think. Actually, go back to the first closer that you were playing before this.
Oh, the funky.
No, like before you started playing with all the themes.
The closing. Sorry,
that one.
This one here.
Maybe this was we had this one for a while.
We did.
We'd have to go back to the very beginning and see what we used. But
Yeah, I think the first couple of episodes we closed with the same theme that we opened with, and then we created this
because
one.
you know what? This song makes me think in my head, who wipes their butt on a burger? Because we would always play a little soundbite of a line from something.
Yeah.
And that was an early episode. That was a news story we read about someone wiping their butt on a burger and serving it to a customer. And so, I don't know. We incorporated it into the ending. And I remember this music, so that was pretty early on. Oh man, we missed our cue to walk off the stage.
All right. Well, I don't know what else to say, but thank you for 10 years, Allie.
Here's to 10 more.
Here's to 10 more. And we will be back again in the very near future with another episode of the SmorgShow podcast. This is the Smorgasbord Radio Show, SmorgShow.com, 312-95-SMORG. And we're signing off for episode 111.